Hello everyone. Today we'll be doing section 1.2, multiplying fractions. Same as before, the homework is over here. Okay. So we'll be learning how to multiply fractions using two ways. The first one is using diagrams, and the second one is using our mathematical rules. Okay. Now let's learn how to do them using diagrams first. So the first question here tells us it's a third times by a half. To calculate this, let's draw a third first. A third is a third of this rectangle here. A third of this rectangle will look like this. Okay, so these two squares or two rectangles are a third of the whole rectangle. And then we're multiplying by a half. Multiplying by a half means we're shading half of this rectangle. Oops. We're shading half of this rectangle. Okay. Now, if we now we finish shading the third and half of the rectangle, multiplying these two means to find the overlapping area of the two shaded areas. So which area is overlapping? It's over this. It's this, right? It's over here. So what is this? This is 1 out of how many there are there? Out of 6, right? It's 1 out of 6 of the whole rectangle. Okay, let's try the second one. Okay, the second one here we have 2/5. So this rectangle is cut into 5 columns. 2/5 is 2 of the 5 columns. So 1, 2. Let's shade them. Okay, and then we're multiplying by 2/4. 2/4. So it's this whole thing, and then cut it into 2, cut it into 4, and we're taking 2 of them. So we'll be shading the bottom. So 1, 2, that's 2/4 of our rectangle. Okay, and now our overlapping area is this part. This part is 4 out of how many squares or how many pieces there in total? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 20. And if you simplify it by dividing both the numerator and denominator by 4, you get 1/5. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when you multiply into fractions, you'll be shading it vertically and shading the second fraction horizontally, so you have an overlapping area like this. Okay, so the first one vertically, the second one horizontally, or you can do the reverse, the first one horizontally and the second one vertically, as long as one is vertical and one is horizontal. Okay, now let's do the third question. 3/5. 3/5 will be here. Okay, and then the second fraction is 2/3. So 2/3. Okay, and what's the overlapping area? It's this part, right? And this part, we have 6 parts, and in total, we have 15 parts. So if you simplify this, dividing by 3, okay, if we divide both top and bottom by 3, we'll get 2/5. Okay, last example. Half times 3/4. Half is half of this rectangle. and 3/4 will be something like that. Okay, so again, the overlapping area right here, this is equal to 3 out of a total of 8 pieces. Okay, so that's how we do fraction multiplications on a diagram. And example number 2, write a multiplication statement for each diagram below. So you remember that we do we shade the first fraction vertically and shade the second fraction horizontally. And if you put them together, the overlapping area will be the solution. So what is this as a fraction? This is the shaded areas 3 rectangles, and there are a total of 5 rectangles. So that will be 3/5 times by 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 pieces of shaded area out of 5 again. And this is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 vertically and 3 horizontally. So 4 times 3 will be 12 red overlapping squares. And then in total, we have 25. Okay, and we can't simplify this anymore, so this will be the final answer. Okay, so from this diagram, we can see that it's the same as saying 3/5 times 4/5 equals to 12/5. Do you guys notice something here? Where do we get the 12 from? And where do we get the 25 from? The 12 is actually 3 times 4, right? And the 25 is actually 5 times 5. Okay, so the way we multiplying fraction is we multiply the top number by the top number to get the top number in the answer, and the bottom number by the bottom number to get the bottom number in the denominator. Okay, now let's go to the next page and try a few questions with the rules. Okay, the rules is right here. Okay, and there are actually 2 ways to multiply fractions. The first one is you multiply first and then reduce. The second one is reduce first and then multiply. Okay, so let's do multiplication first and then reduce. To do this, what we will need to do is follow the rules. So you multiply the numerators, you multiply the denominators, and then if you reduce, if there is a common factor, reduce them or simplify them. Just like what we did with the previous example with the diagram, we'll do 7 times 5 and then 8 times 6. So that's equal to 35 over 48. Okay, second example, same thing, 4 times 6, 9 times 8 on the bottom, and so we have 4 times 6 is 24, 9 times 8 is 72. Now obviously there will be a common factor between the 24 and the 72 because they're both even numbers, right? We know if two numbers are even, then there must be a common factor of 2. Okay, so I can see from these two numbers that there is a common factor of 12. So if I divide both the top and bottom by 12, then on top I'll get 24 divided by 12 is 2. 72 divided by 12 is 6. Well, we can still reduce 2 over 6, right? Because they still have a common factor of 2. If we divide both top and bottom by 2, we get 1 over 3. Okay. So you guys see how it's a little bit troublesome to multiply first and then reduce. So an easier way or a better way to do multiplication is you reduce it before multiplying them. Okay, so for example, the first question, when we multiply them, we'll get 3 times 2 and then 5 times 9 on the bottom. But do you see any common factors between the numerators and the denominators? You can see that 3 and 9, they have a common factor of 3. So if we divide the top 3 by 3 and divide the bottom 9 by 3, we'll get, let's just cross that out. If you divide the top 3 by 3, it became a 1. If you divide the 9 by 3, it became a 3. Okay, so I'm just going to erase the orange numbers so it's less confusing. Okay, so now what's left on top is 1 times 2. That will give you 2. Then what's left on the bottom is 5 times 3, which is 15. So that's the final answer for the first question. Let's look at the second question. So 5 times 4 over 6 times 5. Now, do you see any common factors between the numerator and denominator? You can see, oops, you can see that 5 and 5, they have a common factor of 5. So if we divide both top and bottom by 5, 5 divided by 5 will equal to 1. And same for this one, 5 divided by 5 is equal to 1. And let me change the color, maybe green. And then 4 and 6 also have a common factor of 2. So 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. And so what does that give you? So on top, I have 1 times 2 left. And on the bottom, I have 3 times 1, which is just 3. So my answer for the second question is 2/3. Okay, last example. 4 times 7 and then 21 times 12. Any common factors between the top and the bottom? Yeah, we can see that 21 and the 7 has a common factor of 3, right? So if we divide both 21 and 7 by 7, the common factor is 7, sorry. Divide by 7, then we get 7 divided by 7 is 1, 21 divided by 7 is 3. And then 4 and 12, they also have a common factor of 4. 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3. So now what's left on top is 1 times 1, which is 1. And on the bottom, we have 3 times 3, which is 9. So the answer for the last question is 1/9. Okay. So to multiplying fractions by this method, you will need to reduce first and then multiply the numbers that you get after you reduce. Okay. When you reduce numbers on the top and on the bottom. You're reducing them in pairs, just like what we did with simplifying fractions yesterday. Okay. All right. Now let's do the last example. The last example is a word problem. It's an application question. So to do a word problem, you guys will need to read the question carefully first. Okay? And then find out or circle out or highlight any important information. So in example 5, it says 3/5 of a school class is made up of girls, and 1/3 of the girls work to home. So the question is asking what fraction of the class is made up of girls who walk to home. So we know two pieces of information here. First of all, it's 3/5 of a school class. Is made up of girls. And then the second piece is that a third of the girls walk home. So let's just write down the information. Girls is 3/5 of a school class. And then who walks? How many girls walk home? We have not walk home, walk to school. We have a third of girls walk to school. So what is the question looking for? The question is looking for what fraction of the class made up of girls who walk to school. So we want to calculate the number of girls who walk to school. Okay. All right. So let's combine the pieces of information together. So I know the girls who walk to school is a third of the girls. And we know girls is 3/5 of a class. So we basically want to find a third. We basically want to find a third of girls, and girls is 3/5 of a class. So what we really want to find is a third of 3/5 of a class. So we multiply a third and 3/5 of a class. And remember, when we multiply, let me just write it here. A third times 3/5 will multiply the numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator. And you see that there is a common factor between the top and bottom, 3 and 3, right? So if we divide both by 3, we get 1 and 1. So my answer then is going to be 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 5 is 5, 1/5 of a class. And so this is my final answer. Okay. All right. Please try the listed homework and upload them to Teams. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always ask your question on Teams or you can email me.